Yeah, I have 45 rentals now, and at my peak, I had 74. And at the 74 was a variety of long-term rentals, short-term rentals. And then in addition to those 74, I had a couple Airbnb arbitrages. So I had like a bunch of different things going on in addition to giant renovation projects and flips and some wholesaling. And I was like, this is too much.
This is Jesse Ray. Welcome to the Growth House podcast. I am joined by Shelby. Shelby, I'm so excited. You always have so much energy. So
Yeah.
I'm honored to have you on the show.
Well, dude, I'm stoked to be here. Let's go.
Let's go. So your story is incredible. But here's the thing. We have so many podcasts out there that share someone's come up in that journey of the story. And what we like to do is actually kind of dive more into the tactical stuff. But I want to give people, a little background into you. So first, before we kind of take a step back and do a quick intro on, your come up story, where are you at currently? So meaning real estate investments and then also what you're building right now.
Yeah, I have 45 rentals now, and at my peak, I had 74. And at the 74 was a variety of long-term rentals, short-term rentals. And then in addition to those 74, I had a couple Airbnb arbitrages. So I had like a bunch of different things going on in addition to giant renovation projects and flips and some wholesaling. And I was like, this is too much. And that's kind of like one of the themes in my life now is like less is more. But I sold off a chunk of my portfolio and I got rid of all of my short-term rentals. And so 45 stabilized long-term rentals. And that's where I'm at with the investments.
I love it. So I actually do want to take a step back because in 2018 is when you got started. You were in the Army before, I believe, for 6 years. Is that correct?
Correct.
And then 2018, how'd you get 74 rentals or I guess units in only a couple of years?
Yeah, dude. A lot of different ways. So at the time in 2018, deals were a lot more prevalent on a variety of different sources. So I had some of my deals off of the MLS. I did a bunch of courthouse foreclosures, just some off market like connections through wholesalers. I bought a portfolio with a buddy of mine that was 21 units. So that was a chunk. But I did a bunch of different strategies and I primarily did to find deals and for the acquisition portion. And then financing it, I was really big on the BRRRR strategy. So I did a lot of private money and lines of credit, some hard money when I had to, really creatively like piecing together different, which I mean, people might even say it's like sketchy, like the amount of like I would stack different loan products. But to me, it wasn't sketchy because it was all calculated and I had my teams in place to do the renovation and the management after the fact. So that's how I was able to recycle cash and pick up as many properties as I did in a short amount of time.
Got it. And you said you were doing all these different strategies. Now you're like, you know what? Stabilize 45 long-term rentals. Walk me through that thought process and why you decided to go that route instead.
Yeah. Okay. And it's funny because I was doing a whole bunch on the investment side of the house, but this whole time I was also still a real estate agent. I was working with investors. I built a team of real estate agents. So I was managing that as well. And it was so much. And coming out of the Army, it was never something where you kind of like slow down and you think about like, what do I want my life to be like? It was more of like, just do the work. Pain is just like weakness leaving the body. Like all of this, like go, go, go. And then, our culture was very like hustle grind. And so it wasn't until I hit kind of like a cracking point within myself that I was like, this is not sustainable and this is not the life that I want to live. And so I did a bunch of reflecting on what is my highest return and more importantly, what do I not hate? What do I love doing? What brings me energy? Who brings me energy? And so after that like reflection process, I made a ton of changes in my life, one of which was selling off
Did you say that kind of like sad, or did you say that like you're looking back, you're happy about that? Because here's the thing, Shelby. I think the one thing that I've always heard time and time again is all these real estate investors, like the one regret I have is ever selling any of my properties, right? We hear that, but tell me the real truth behind, that decision for you. Was it just those weren't performing as well? They were just too much stress? What was that reason?
It was a lot. They weren't performing as well as they should have. And that is, reality versus your pro forma on paper is always different. So performance was definitely one, but also, basically both were huge renovation projects if I wanted to keep them long term. And they were fine for now, but when you start analyzing your portfolio, you don't care about fine for now. You're like, how is this going to survive in the next 30 years? And so, for example, one of the properties that we sold off was a house that was built in 1835, and it was 8 unit. And it was this beautiful, historic property that was short term rental. All 8 were short term rentals in like the heart of the city, Fayetteville, North Carolina. And so it was like really supposed to be this like passion project. But in the like initial renovation, we didn't do enough to set up this historic property to be good for years into the future. It was essentially like a lipstick job, that's a whole nother lesson learned if we want to go down like the historic property route another time.
I try to stay away from anything historic.
Oh my God, dude, don't even go there. But it's so tempting because you're like, you can envision this like beautiful short-term rent, this whole thing. But anyway, I was looking at this property and I was like, in order to get this to a place that I feel really confident in its like longevity, it's going to take a lot of money, a lot of work, and it's performing enough right now to sell it to someone who will be happy to have it. Therefore, I don't have those future problems, and they are so excited to take them on.
Got it. And then most of your portfolio, was it in Fayetteville?
Yeah, most of my portfolio is still in Fayetteville. I have one property in Washington State. That was my first duty station. And then I have a couple in Charlotte, North Carolina.
And you were purchasing these properties based on where you were at the time?
But also, it was a really low barrier for entry. Like I have several properties that were like 40 grand, 50 grand, and then you could put 15 into them and it'd be worth like 100 and rent for like, 1,000. So like the numbers were really good in that regard. And it's just when given the choice, I do believe that if your own market makes sense for you and your strategy and your finances and all the things, when given the choice, definitely invest there as opposed to somewhere where you don't have eyes on the property.
Totally agree. This is me personally as well. I have to ask, did you ever meet, the most famous person that was ever born? I don't think he was born there, but he was raised in Fayetteville. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, the name escapes me, but
J.
I've seen
Cole.
his house. Thank you. Okay.
My favorite artist of all time, Vietnam.
Damn, dude. Yeah. So I'm not a J. Cole fan. I'm so sorry. I'm going to go start listening immediately after this podcast.
Please do. Please do.
But one of my friends is, and she would be like, "Oh my God, that's J. Cole's old house." And I'm like, "Fuck that."
That's so funny. Yeah, because he has this album cover where he's sitting, I believe, on his old house in Fayetteville.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
Side note. But I want to ask you about when you got into the rental game, were you going for cash flow? Were you going for a certain number? Like, how much would I cash flow per property or per unit?
Yeah, I did. I just followed straight up what Bigger Pockets told me. Like the straight up, your goal of $200 a door after you account for vacancies and repairs and capital expenditures and property management. And I would use the little BP calculators because why not? So that was my goal starting out. And of course, Brandon Turner said that appreciation is just icing on the cake. And I drank all of that Kool-Aid back in those days. So that was what I lived by. But fortunately, appreciation did happen, and it is a beautiful thing.
So you had a post, which we talked about before this podcast started, where you actually broke down all the real expenses, and people are gonna probably listen to this and be like, Jesse, are you pushing us away from like investing in real estate? No, but I want to give people the reality of what it is like investing in real estate and all the things that people don't talk about on podcasts. Like you had a post that basically said, here's all the real expenses that go into owning a rental. We're talking about AC units. We're talking about replacing the roof, the fridge, etc. So let's just take a little bit of a pivot and kind of talk about that, because I think it's really important for people to realize and know, especially when you're only making $250 a month off of these units.
Dude, for sure. And that $250 a month and like the analysis, like it didn't account for the little ankle biter expenses too, where it's like, if you have a multifamily property and your property manager, they talk to me, they're like, you have to do lawn care for this property because there's no divide between, and so like lawn care expenses. And granted, I know there's people who are like, you can bill that back to the tenant, you can increase. True. I'm just saying that a lot of times those calculations beginning, you don't think about the lawn care. You don't think about The pest control expenses, or if you're doing short-term rental, how much cleaning costs.
Yes.
Ridiculous. Or pressure washing the exterior, cleaning the gutters. QuickBooks was another one. I was like, why did no one tell me about QuickBooks? So, and I'm not talking about using it. I'm talking about the monthly recurring expenses. So just,
Hmm.
and granted, I guess you have it pulled up. It's been a while since I wrote that, although I do clearly remembering being like, yeah, here's my giant list of things you're not thinking of.
Right?
So definitely a reality for sure.
So true, because you even said like one fridge you have to replace. You're making $250 a month. There goes like your whole year of cash flow.
Yeah,
And I know I told
totally.
you my whole strategy is essentially co-living now that I'm not living in the houses. I started house hacking, went to co-living, and then if you're netting, which is ridiculous, is like $4,000 per house net after all those expenses, then it kind of makes sense and you're able to really like live off that cash flow potentially. But when you're just looking at a long-term rental, yeah, those numbers, that cash flow goes away real quick with one thing going wrong.
Yeah. And it depends on your market too. Like, I mean, I mentioned already $1,000 was one of my rentals long term brought in per month. I have some that are like, still in the 700s, for my multis. And so if your monthly income is 725 or, my good ones are like 1,500, like ballin', that's kind of a different story too than if you were in a market where you have much higher income. But flip side is your house probably cost a lot more. Therefore, your monthly payments are probably a lot more. So just all fun things to consider.
100%. So let me ask you this. If you started over right now, and I
Hmm.
want to dive into your real estate business, I want to dive into your mastermind podcasting. Like there's a lot of stuff I want to cover
Okay.
because you do so much. But I want to real quickly, if you were to start over right now, would you go into real estate as an investor? What would you do?
I would focus 100% of my energy on building my agent business. Um,
Hmm.
and this is if I didn't have, like a W two or whatever. And the reason why I say that is because if you focus 100% of your energy on one thing, which would be like hypothetically building a business, a real business, not just a piece together piece of, shit that's breaking every 2 seconds, like a real business, you have the ability to bring in so much money into your world, then there will come a time, when your CPA is like, you need to do something with this money. And at that point in time, you have enough excess and you have enough resources to make really, really smart investment decisions. You have the opportunity to invest anywhere with anyone. Flip side of that, people try to get into investing right away and they are pinching every freaking penny to come up with the down payment. And they're like so worried about the cost of an inspection that's like $600. And at that point, you probably affording something that's not a great investment that maybe is a D property where the numbers look really good on paper. Then you buy it and you have the worst tenant, you have deferred maintenance, you have all these problems. And so, all that to say, I think if you focus on building a business and you generate a lot of income, okay, one other example, it's like you could save up $20,000, put 20% down on a $100,000 property and hope for, your $200 a month in cash flow. Or you could take that $20,000, same $20,000, and invest it into your education, into your business, and then next year net I don't even know what number, but way more than $200 a month. And then once you have all of that
Hmm.
money and experiences and resources, then you're able to have a lot more opportunity. So that was a long answer for a short question. Sorry.
This is so good because this is something that a lot of people that I'm talking to, because they reach out, hey Jesse, how do I get started in real estate? Blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, I don't know. It depends on your situation. Depends on what kind of
Totally.
lifestyle you want to live. Depends on, are you trying to hit, just a number of financial freedom so you can quit your job. But at the end of the day, it comes down to what I believe now is it's okay to have active income. Like I think we got brainwashed
Totally.
for a while. That's like
Yes.
passive income, passive income, passive income. I'm like, passive income is awesome. For me personally, I want your take on this. My whole thought process was, all right, achieve financial independence where through passive or semi-passive income. But then once you hit that, and it's usually not that much for a lot of people, like what's your expenses? Maybe between $4,000 and $10,000. Obviously depends if you're single, you're married, kids, etc. But for our audience, it's mostly people in their 20s, 30s. And these are people who, want to hit this financial independence number so they can go do what they want with who they want when they want. But at the end of the day, okay, how you keep growing is actually active income. So I'm over here, I hit that $10,000 so my passive number mark, but then I'm like, cool, but actually want to buy more properties. I can't buy more properties just with this passive income number.
Mm-hmm.
Now it's time to actually start and build a business. So I totally love what you're talking about here. Tell me more about Five Pillars. Is that your real estate company business that you're talking about?
Baby.
That's your baby.
Okay. Yeah. Five Pillars was, so after my very first year in real estate, 2018. This is the agent side of the house. I was Keller Williams Rookie of the Year. I closed 48 my first year, which was a lot. And so because of that, I attracted a lot of attention and people who are like, wow, how the fuck did you do that? I also want to do that. And a lot of those people were investors. They were military. They wanted to get out, get their license, and kind of follow my path that I had started. And so we formed Five Pillars Realty Group, which was a traditional real estate team. If you're not in the weeds with that, I'm not going to go into the weeds with that. If you are an agent, you're listening to this and you want to go into the weeds, hit me up. I'd love to talk to you about it. But we did that for a couple of years and then shifted the model when I had that, revelation that less is more and all of these things, and became a nationwide community as opposed to a location specific traditional team, which opened up the doors to a lot of other entrepreneurs across the country who are looking to build real businesses. And once they do that, invest in real estate.
I think there's two different types of people who are real estate agents. Those that you said, like they're actually entrepreneurs that are building a business through being a real estate agent. And then those who are just real estate agents and they do everything, really a solopreneur. Want to break that down?
Repeat. You're talking about two real business owners as opposed to the people who are just doing everything. Yes, that's the question. Okay, perfect.
Yeah, it's just like there's real estate agents that are just in the weeds with everything, and there's real estate agents, like you said, are more entrepreneurs that are building a real estate business.
Right. Okay. And so the real business side of that is building it in a way that eventually removes you from every bit of the business with the goal of you want to be the conductor of the orchestra. You don't want to be playing the instruments. And so it's kind of like that visual for all of it. But when you're building out a real business, you have to have like a repeatable, systematized marketing strategy. You have to have a sales process. You have to have an operational process that when you are able to, get the business and the sale, consistently produce the same results every single time. And by having that framework, which is what we teach in Five Pillars, in building it so that way you create these processes or you rip off and duplicate processes that are working for other agents across the nation. It's the goal, right? We can borrow from other people, make that process your own for your own business. You can hire the right person and put the right technology in place. So that way it runs without you manually doing every piece of the business. And eventually, if you love the business so much you can stay in it, that's wonderful. But if you want to remove yourself from it, you at least have the option to. Whereas the flip side is the most agents are not thinking like that. And it's more of like they live every single day in a chaotic space of whack-a-mole where they're reactionary to everything that pops up and they're just doing enough to survive the day and they're ending the day wondering where it went. And that's like what we're trying to avoid.
I love it. So I want to let you think on this one before I'm going to ask you another question after this.
Okay.
So I do want to know, what are some like little tips or little secrets that you could share with the audience who are real estate agents? Because we actually do have a lot of those people that listen to the show, to actually get them to be able to remove themselves from the business eventually. But first, what are some common traps that most real estate agents are going through? Like you said, it's whack-a-mole. They're trying to do all this stuff and don't know where their leads are coming from, etc.
Dude, you can't ask me two questions like that because I've already forgotten both of them.
I'm a terrible interviewer.
Trap. Okay, what's your second question that we're answering first? Okay, yeah. Trap is that agents, they treat it like a hobby and therefore get results like a hobby. They are not realizing that, okay, so most people who get into real estate are coming from a job, like a 9-to-5, where they're very used to being told what to do. This is kind of blanket across the entrepreneur space, not just real estate agents. But they come to this world and they're like, okay, I'm ready to do it. What do I do? And then they just wait. they wait for someone to tell them that like no one's coming to save you, and you have to work as if it is your 9 to 5. And even like before we hit record, more than that, like a 5 to 9 in the beginning, because you are actually building an entire business from the ground up. And so one of the biggest traps is not mismanaged expectations. It's a big one because it's a fuck ton of work. It's really hard. And then once they are getting momentum, another big trap is no one can do it as well as I can. And then they don't like to leverage, they don't like to outsource, and instead they just work instead of taking the time and the effort, which it is time, it is effort, and it does suck to slow down, to, you know, recruit, to attract, to hire, to train, to mentor over time. All of that stuff does suck to do. But at the end of the day, if you do it, you can just live the magical dream instead of be working until you die.
Totally hear you on that. So the first question of the 2-question part, you actually kind of answer. You kind of answered that, but I guess yeah. On a management side of things, what's maybe 1 or 2 things that you can kind of share that people can tactically use?
Use to oversee your hires, or use for what piece?
Really anything, as you're trying to, you know, grow your business and not have to be in the weeds at all times.
Okay, the first thing that I would say is don't overcomplicate it, because I think that people constantly are looking for the right system, the right tool, the magic thing that will suddenly turn their lack of systems into systems. But at the end of the day, system, all it is a repeatable process, which a lot of mine in the beginning were on fucking Word documents. You know, like, what are my steps of doing this? And then, you know, if you want to elevate that, that's when you can put it into systems like the traditional technology systems, which Trello is a really easy, intuitive, you know, one to start with. Lots of people love Asana and Monday, and or there's a lot of CRMs where you can build in task management into your actual CRM, but none of that matters. It's not going to fix your problem if you don't have a process, if you don't have your way of doing things committed to paper.
So good. What about a marketing tip? Because I know you're known as like a marketing expert out here in the real estate world. So
Cool.
Come on now. Give yourself some credit.
Okay, marketing. Everything works if you work. This is kind of like the systems tip, but I think a lot of it, and are we speaking specifically to like agents?
Yeah.
Okay. There are a ton of different strategies, and a lot of them depend on your personality type, which I do recommend starting with. Like, the DISC assessment is a great one. I actually have like a whole template email. If agents are listening and you want to go through like the little process, you know, you'll do the DISC assessment. Depending on your results, there's a breakdown by DISC as to which are common lead generation marketing strategies by that personality type. Because these 2 easy examples. One, there's the type of person who is more inclined to do like cold calling. This is like I'm just going to hit the number, you know, I'm just going to make the dials every single day. I'm going to make X amount of contacts. I'm going to work until I get X amount of no's, and I can do that. And I know that I've input the work to generate the output. So there's like that person. Then there's this whole school of people who are like, I don't want to fucking cold call. That's terrible. Those people don't want to talk to me. And the other side of that are normally like, I only want to talk to people who want to talk to me. Well, those people aren't going to fall, like, people aren't going to fall out of the sky to want to talk to you. You have to be doing something to attract them. So like that school of thought is generally better at like content creation or YouTube, or doing something so that way the audience screens and self-selects working with them ahead of time to avoid difficult conversations. So long story short, you have to know what's out there, test a lot of things, understand yourself, and then pick something and commit to it.
Like you just said, the DISC assessment will help with you realizing what your strengths are and then play to your strengths with the marketing aspects.
Now our mastermind or community is 5 Pillars Nation, which is for the investor agent. You don't have to be an investor, but that's a lot of our focus. But yeah, so that is one community that I have.
And is this community people that are working with you, or this just overall like a community of people that are?
These are people who are a part of 5 Pillars Nation, and
Got it.
You have to apply and you have to be accepted. And then there's 2 routes. If you do want to join, you can go through EXP, which is our brokerage, or we have a opt-in like subscription type of once you qualify, then join the community. Does that make sense?
And I'm always curious because EXP is kind of like blown up, it seems like, over the past few years, and it looks like an amazing model for real estate agents. What was your decision?
It is.
What was your decision process going from Keller Williams when you were like the rookie of the year, big time, to then, all right, I'm going to start on a different, I guess, platform brokerage?
The simple way to think about it is that the old school brokerages, the brick and mortar, are Blockbuster, and EXP is Netflix. And so at the end of the day, I watched Blockbuster die out. I was there for it. And I believe in the technology forward, cloud-based, all of the passive income opportunities that EXP provides. It just aligned so much with what I was already doing with my investment goals. And they were also way more understanding of like me doing crazy deals and creative shit. So where I was getting a lot of hate from my other brokerage for that. So that was kind of the decision point.
Passion versus doing a business that will create you money to then maybe focus on your passion afterwards. So a lot of people, especially when starting out, they're working in W-2 and they're like, oh, I want to figure out my passion. Like passion. For me, I was like, let me just get my financial independence number and then have that stability, security, and then do my business that ended up being my passion. I kind of call it passionate income, which is coined by my friend Brian Lubin, which I love.
Oh my God. Adorable.
So let me know what you think about making a business on your passion versus maybe hitting a financial independence number, then doing that.
I don't think that most people know what their passion is, and I don't think you can find it without taking massive action in the world. And so I don't think that like waiting around until you find your passion is the way to go. I think that picking something and going at it as hard as possible, and then taking the time after you've gone and you've given it a run to reflect on that, and whether you need to pivot slightly or adjust. But you won't know until you've put in effort, until you've had experiences, until you have something to reflect on about whether or not you liked it, whether or not you're good at it, whether or not it filled your cup with energy and passion and all the things. So I'm not on the train of like, but if you do know what you're passionate about, and it will also help you, it's aligned with your goals, your financial goals and all of that stuff, then fuck yeah, send it. Okay, flip side, if you know what your passion is and it doesn't lead you to your financial goals, I say leave your passion behind, knock out your financial goals first, because it will allow you to build the lifestyle that you can pursue your passion as much as frequently as you want without that stress or that barrier. Yeah.
I feel like people get caught up in like, oh, I gotta love what I do. It's gotta be fun. And I think Ed Milet has this quote where he says, or maybe it's Tim Grover, they say winning is more fun than fun is fun. And at the end of the day, if you're winning at something, you're going to start having fun at it. Like maybe someone's passion is not being a real estate agent, but if they're crushing it, they're helping people, they're going to start liking it. They're going to start loving it.
Yeah. Alex Hormozi had one similar to this recently as well. Same concept.
Yeah.
Where it's like, you don't know what you love until you're good at something. You don't get good on something until you do a lot of it. So just do something a lot.
What's a question I haven't asked you that you think would be good for either our audience or people that are looking to become a real estate agent?
If the question were like the thing that expedited my growth more than anything else, and my answer would be the people I had around me. Like, God, the phrase is so overused where it's like, you are the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. But it's so true. And I was very fortunate to, in the very beginning, my first year in 2018, attract some like people who were very like-minded, who I'm still business partners with one of them today. And just working around someone who is your peer in work ethic and drive and goals and really just like feeding off their energy, fire and gasoline, it like pushes you, challenges you, expands your horizons more than anything else could. And it's like those days when you just want to fucking sit on the couch and do nothing, like eat chips, whatever. You're my friend. I know he's busting his ass. Like, and my competitive gets fired up. And of course I want to, like, it's not negative competitive. It's just like really healthy. So if you are feeling like you don't have that, I would say join some freaking communities, get out there, put yourself out, go to meetups, find your people, listen to podcasts, find who connects with you, reach out to them, because doing it alone, first of all, is not as much fun. And second of all, you will not go nearly as far if it's just you against you in your fucking house all day.
Growth House, our motto is you become who you surround yourself with. And we have these homes where it is like-minded people living together. And that's kind of how I started it was, oh my gosh, this is amazing when it's like a 24/7 mastermind in the house where you're waking up doing cold plunges together. And then at night you're on the whiteboard writing out business plans or how can we help each other? So I love that you took it to the community. There are people that have reached out to me, which I'm sure they have reached out to you as well, that say, hey, Jesse, how do I get started in the community? You mentioned meetups, you mentioned podcasts, reach out to these people. If someone was literally starting from zero, maybe they are introverted a little bit, what's the best route that they should go to get connected with a community that's right for them?
And I know a lot of introverts. I'm married to one, hyper introvert. So maybe I'll do it from his perspective. What he did is literally, he found me. This is a funny story. My husband found me from my Bigger Pockets podcast and DM'd me from that podcast.
I love it. Slid the DMs.
Slid the DMs.
It works, guys. The DMs still work.
Yeah. So I guess if you are, you have to be bigger than that fear or the introvert that drains your energy. You have to do something to find the people who you feel would connect with you and then reach out to them. And a good extrovert will always adopt a good introvert. Like I have adopted many an introvert in my day. So if that makes sense.
Everyone who comes on the show that provides value for us, we want to give back somehow. And like you mentioned, reach out to people that you connect with their story or interested in learning more about what they're doing. But at the end of the day, we don't ever reach out with a DM saying, hey, can I pick your brain? I absolutely hate that. I'm sure you feel the same way.
It's the worst. I'm like, no.
So guys, we provide value first and we want to, thank them for their time. Shelby, how can someone reach out to you and provide you value?
Oh my gosh, guys, if you could go listen to, I host two podcasts, the Real Estate Rockstars podcast and the Agent Goldmine podcast. They're both for agents. So if you're not an agent, you should still do this. What would be so impactful for me is if you could listen to a show or piece of it and give me feedback. Be like, Shelby, you say too much, or your laugh sounds like a shrill or whatever. But constructive feedback would mean the world to me. And bonus tips, if you do a freaking 5-star review on one of our podcasts on Apple, if you do that, dude, I will give you the world. Seriously.
Oh, Shelby, I love your energy. What are 3 podcasts or books that you would recommend anyone starting their entrepreneur journey or their investing journey?
The podcast that I'm loving right now, besides mine, of course, and yours, of course,
Take it.
Is Modern Wisdom. I love
is that Chris?
Wisdom. Yeah, that's Chris.
So good.
I also love Diary of a CEO. Those two are great. And in regard to like a book, like the most classic book, because I'm a big Miracle Morning girl, but I've said that way too many times. So I'm going to go with the different classic, which is How to Win Friends and Influence People. And it's like a very slow read because it was written so long ago. But the lessons in that book, which I read years ago, and I continue to reread my notes from it, have absolutely changed every bit of my life in a positive way.
And we love hearing success stories. What I want to kind of end before we find out how to connect with you, what's one of your biggest failures over the last couple years in real estate? And then what'd you learn from that?
One of my biggest failures, I feel like it's I don't even know if I would say failure. It's the turning point when I was trying to do everything and not slowing down to think about why. A lot of it was ego driven. It was like when I got into real estate, I was like, I want 100 doors. Like, why the fuck? What? No. What value do you want those doors to provide you? What lifestyle? And so I think one of my biggest failures / lessons learned is when I kept doing so much for the wrong reasons, like ego or this chip on my shoulder or money, or just so I could say I had an achievement or accomplishment, that I broke a little bit. And so the biggest lesson learned for me is like less is more. One thing, reflect on why you're doing things. So it's not really one lesson. That's like 14, Jesse.
Yeah, learning lessons, not failures, right?
Yeah.
Everyone gets caught up in this unit count so they can put on their Instagram bio, but I'm with you. Small and mighty portfolio. So Shelby, how do people connect with you? What's the best ways? I know you said you have a podcast. I believe you have a YouTube channel as well. So how do people connect with Shelby Johnson?
The best way to connect with me is via Instagram, and it is the Shelby Show with 2 underscores. So yeah, that's definitely the best way, but also definitely check out Real Estate Rockstars podcast, The Agent Gold Mine. And you can go to fivepillarsnation.com if you are an agent. That is the, what's what with our community. And here's like a little coming soon. If you're listening to this and you're like a top performer, because right now, Five Pillars Nation, you do have to qualify to get in, but it's much more geared towards like midway, beginning a little bit, but like building a business from the ground up. Work in Progress is a hyper exclusive elite fucking mastermind is the worst word ever. But what it is fulfilling a space that is lacking in our agent community, which is the fact that everyone who has a mastermind or community, it's all top down, and it's not like peer to peer. With what's working now, it's like the person who did it fucking 3 years ago, or who is a guru online. And so we're creating a space for the best of the best to collaborate with each other, coach each other, and share like what's working now. So that's coming soon. We're going to launch in the 1st of May. So if that applies to you, hit me up. Again, the best way is the Shelby Show on Instagram, but also Shelby at 5.
And one last thing, if someone's right now going through maybe some of those learning lessons in their life and they just need a little motivation or inspiration, is there a quote or just something that you would leave the audience with?
Dude, it's so bad because you're like motivation. And the one that I had thought of before is like, no one's coming to save you. And that's like not really
that
motivational.
Is motivation. That is though. I love that. It's so true.
Yeah, no one's fucking coming to save you. Yeah, that's it. Period.
The end. Shelby, it's an honor to connect with you. I'm so glad that Ali connected us. We'll definitely stay in touch. And I'm excited about that mastermind you're putting together. So
dude, thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Jessie Ray, Growth House Podcast, Shelby Johnson. We're going to link everything so you can go connect with her. We're out.